This is every fight to make after UFC 282. Awesome card with some very interesting results. Looking forward to matching up each of the guys, the key fighters, really. We're going to talk about what could be and what should be next for each one of them. Make sure you guys smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe. And let's get into the first one. Magomed Ankalaev fights to a controversial draw with Jan Blachowicz. I scored this fight for Ankalaev. I went back and I rewatched the controversial rounds 1 and 3. I thought Ankalaev definitely had the first round. There's an argument for the third round. Obviously, fourth and fifth. He should be the champion, but he beat Jan for a vacant title that ends up then being called a draw officially by the judges. The UFC goes forth and books another fight for the belt. It's Glover and Jamal Hill. So what is Magomed Ankalaev going to do? To me, the sensible choice is we rematch the Jan Blachowicz fight. But there's potential dilemma around this fight that could happen. Reason being is Ankalaev says, I might not want to fight for this organization anymore. Is this the last we've seen of Ankalaev? I don't know if he is going to stick around. I think you have to run this one back because it was a draw. It only makes sense here. And I feel like Blachowicz is in a weird spot too, where I don't want to see him versus someone else in the ranks. I'd rather see them go back after it. Again, regardless of if Ankalaev should have gotten the win, let's give both guys the proper 5-round training camp. And maybe in 2023, we got a fight night main event. And the winner of this fight would be very close to a title shot. But I don't know how far out now, because with Glover Hill and then Yuri Prochazka probably challenging next, who knows what the division is going to look like in the next year. I think Ankalaev, Blachowicz 2 should go down. I like the rematch here. Now, we jump to Paddy the Baddie. Paddy Pimblett's next fight. Who should he be matched up against? People were very upset with the decision. Granted, there's people on both sides of the argument. I went back and rewatched it, and I understand the scoring towards Paddy Pimblett. But that's not what this video is about. If you want to hear why I scored it that way, check out the recap show that's on the channel. For Paddy Pimblett, moving forward with a win, because that is what it'll officially be titled as, whether you agree or not, I have to give him an opponent that makes sense because he just fought in a co-main event. We can't keep giving him unranked guys. He needs someone that pushes him towards the top. Obviously, the UFC's dream is probably him and McGregor. That definitely can't happen after this one over Jared Gordon. The chin of Paddy is so high, and I'm fearful that this guy will find that chin and sleep him. It's Dan Hooker. But if there's somebody with a potential gap in the game, if Dan Hooker is on the floor, Paddy Pimblett gets his back, there's a chance Paddy could strangle him. As far as the striking goes, I don't want to see Paddy standing up with Dan Hooker because we might be getting Dan Hooker a knockout win. He might make Paddy look bad on the feet. Hooker in the last one, he just beat Claudio Puelles, who's a pretty good grappler. I do think Puelles doesn't have the same level of stand-up of Paddy Pimblett. Even though Pimblett's chin is crazy high, he does have pretty good offensive strikes. There's this zero defense there because he's super hittable. I think the Dan Hooker fight makes sense. I would like to see them make it, but Paddy's at significant risk of losing, so they better make it on a huge event that's worthwhile. Bring out the fans. I feel like there's a chance the UFC, though, dodges this big fight for Paddy. And I don't know who they would give him. Like, they might put him in a weird spot against another unranked guy, but he could fumble the bag and lose to one of them. That chin is so high that anybody that has some pop could crack him with an overhand or a hook and flatline him. I like Dan Hooker versus Paddy Pimblett because I really feel like there's a strong grappling edge for Paddy, and I think the UFC will like that as well. We'll see what they decide to do. Next, Dricus du Plessis. He just beat Darren Till. It was a good back and forth. Early, du Plessis looked like a straight killer, and then late, he looked like a straight killer. But in the in-between, Till had moments. Du Plessis, the warrior, comes through. Who does he fight next? I think it's Roman Delizze, someone who just burst into the rankings. I believe he's ranked at number 8, coming off of a win over Jack Hermanson, where he looked like a menace on the floor. Du Plessis, known for the striking, but also has now proven he's got the grappling game too. Roman Delizze was known for the grappling, but now proving he has the striking game too. I'm very curious to see this fight. I think it makes a lot of sense. Two real contenders on the rise at middleweight with momentum coming into it. I think du Plessis versus Roman Delizze is a very fun fight. And I feel like it just kind of makes sense for both guys at this point now. Delizze, I don't think they, rush him up to the real tip top. Originally when he fought and I talked about what could be next for him, I thought maybe they push him fast to like a Vittori, sitting on it now for longer, seeing Dricas' performance. I think this is a sensible matchup for both guys with similar trajectories up the ranks, really. Win streaks. I know Duplessis hasn't lost in the UFC yet, but there's a good run going for Delizze. He seems to have become Roman Delizze 2.0 since the loss to Trevin Giles. I like Duplessis and Roman Delizze sometime in 2023. Count me in for this matchup. Both ranked guys. Both should be in the top 10. I know Delizze definitely is. Duplessis should be right there. So let's make this fight. I'm very curious what happens. Now, we'll jump to Darren Till. An unfortunate case for Darren Till. This is 3 in a row. Great performance against Robert Whittaker, loses the decision. Brunson TKOs him. Duplessis submits him. And I'll be honest, he broke at the end with Duplessis. I know his knee was hurt and stuff like that. They said maybe an ACL tear or whatnot. But he's been worked over by these top guys. I still believe he deserves a ranked opponent. And the name Darren Till, it just keeps you in firefights. He's not going to get no easy touch. It's just not going to happen. This next option, I think, is a fight that stylistically really favors Till. I understand people might want to see him against Jack Hermansson, but that's not who I'm going to throw out there. I think it's Chris Curtis, who's coming off a win, yes. Striker versus striker. Let's give Darren Till somebody that for the vast majority is just going to want to stand. Jack Hermansson's a guy that could potentially mix in the takedowns, and I think would mix in the takedowns and have success on Darren Till. Shit, Chris Curtis might put Till on his back because the wrestling of Darren Till, in my opinion, has regressed. I have seen zero improvement in his takedown defense. I really feel like it has actually diminished a bit. Obviously, potentially some injuries. The guy's had a long career, some wear and tear on the body. He can still stand and strike, though. Chris Curtis is a guy that likes to stand and strike and just knocked out Joaquin Buckley on this same card. He's ranked 15. Darren Till probably going to be ranked around that 12, 13 by next week. Put me in for Darren Till, Chris Curtis. Battle of strikers. I want to see it sometime in 2023. Obvious concerns going to be if Darren Till's knee is as torn up as they're saying. He might not be looking at a fight for over a year. I expect Curtis to be more active than that. So timing, circumstance, and whatnot will play a big factor into this one. But I do actually like this matchup a lot. And if I have the option of picking Darren Till's next fight, the UFC said, yo, AJ, you're in control. I'm saying let's go Darren Till, Chris Curtis in a striker's delight. And let's bring it to that UFC London card. Obviously, Till might not be ready to fight by that point. We'll see ongoing weeks if the knee is seriously injured or not. But I like this matchup. Curtis versus Darren Till. Let's keep running. Holy shit. Ilia Topuria beat Bryce Mitchell's ass. He's a killer. He can strike. He can grapple. He's got knockout power in his hands. Ilia Topuria is a problem. And big fights are what are on the horizon really now. I was sitting down and thinking, what is the fight for him? Does he deserve to get pushed way up? The way he looked was incredible. And you know what? I'm going to throw him T-City, the guy that he called out. And people will say, what the fuck? Why T-City? Brian Ortega's ranked 3. Ortega's coming off back-to-back losses. He also has a loss to Max Holloway, one out from that. His win, good performance, but it was over Chan Sung Jung. I think that Ilia Topuria is right there as far as skill set. I think that Brian Ortega, he's a little bit overrated, especially rankings-wise. I know he had great moments versus Volkanovski. Ilia Topuria's grappling game is going to be a problem for Ortega that really tests him. The boxing of Topuria is going to be a problem for Ortega. Guys, early prediction for this fight, I think there's a chance that Ilia Topuria knocks out Brian Ortega. Now, coming off an injury, Ortega might need some time. Topuria might be willing to wait a little while into 2023. Maybe we get this fight done for the summer. I think that makes a lot of sense. And it would be Ilia Topuria's coming out party, at least an attempt of such, against a legit name in Brian Ortega. Another guy that I was kind of considering for Topuria was Chan Sung Jung, but I said, I ain't doing the Korean zombie like that. I believe the UFC's going to Korea too. They should give him a striker's delight fight. Give him a matchup that favors him. I think for Topuria, you throw him T-City. He had a super impressive performance. T-City is on a losing streak, coming back from injury, and I think that Topuria is a nightmare matchup. they'll be potentially throwing T-City to the wolves and, pushing the Topuria name to the top. But this is the UFC. This is not boxing. We don't do tune-up fights. We don't match them up with easy opponents. Granted, for certain guys, they do as they build in the UFC. For Topuria, it's savage after savage, and I think he takes all their heads, T-City being the next one. Let's talk about Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell. He got his ass kicked out there. He couldn't take down Topuria. I mean, he let one takedown in the first round, but he really couldn't take him down for anything that brings significant damage. On the feet, he was getting worked. He was getting cracked by big punches. Bryce Mitchell's nasty still, but Ilia Topuria is just that next level up. Jesus, Paddy Pimblett's probably thankful he ain't fighting Ilia Topuria. Lucky that fight's not going down. I feel like Bryce Mitchell still deserves a ranked opponent. He just ran into the next big thing. Let's give him Calvin Kattar, who's going to be coming back from injury maybe around the same time. Bryce Mitchell's going to want to go back out there and fight. You got a little Arkansas versus Massachusetts going on. This is no real rivalry between the states, but all Americans with mad different personalities and styles too. Bryce Mitchell, the grappler. Calvin Kattar, wrestling background, but more so known for the boxing game. I'd be very interested in this fight. We'll see when Kattar's ready to go. I still want to give Thug Nasty a ranked guy. I don't want to shove him outside of the rankings or give him someone too far back. This is still the Bryce Mitchell that destroyed Edson Barboza. I'm telling you, he still can beat a lot of guys in that top 15, I think, or at least a fair amount. I really think Topuria's just got that thing. He's that prospect to keep the eye on. I think Calvin Kattar, Bryce Mitchell, both guys coming off loss. For Kattar, it's multiple losses now after the Arnold Allen injury loss. Josh Emmett before that. I think timelines will line up, and I think these two will throw down. And I'd be excited to see this matchup. It's a fight night main event. 5 rounds, I'd watch the hell out of that fight. Yeah, so UFC, I think they're booking Bryce Mitchell, Kattar. At least I think they should. Let's keep running. Let's talk about the heavyweight savage, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Biggie Boy. Damn, he was like the lock of the century. We called him lock of the week. He was the lock of the century. 23 seconds, and he runs through Chris Daukaus. Daukaus needs to drop to 205. But damn, Jairzinho's power is crazy. If he's aggressive Jairzinho's scary for all these heavyweights. He's got crazy amount of experience in pro kickboxing. The knockout power is 100% there. So who do we match him up with? I think you face him with another power puncher. It's Derek Lewis. It's now or never on this fight. I've been wanting to see Lewis versus Rozenstruik for a while. Both guys with devastating knockout power. Lewis was booked to fight Spivak. I think it worked out beautifully that fight didn't happen because it was a very difficult matchup for him with a grappler. Let's go striker. Let's go Derek Lewis, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. This is a huge fight night main event. I think everybody would be clamoring at the bit to see this fight because I want to see who can land that big shot. After the performance against Daukaus, the way that they're looking, I might be favoring Rozenstruik to take out Derek Lewis at this point. I also think Rozenstruik might be able to knock out a guy tied to Ivasa too. He's in an interesting spot because I know he has that Volkov loss. It was a little bit of an early stoppage, but he was getting touched up. Obviously, Curtis Blades beats him. There's fun fights for Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and Derek Lewis is a name that they got to capitalize on. I need to see this fight. I've been wanting to see it for a couple years, and I think now is the perfect time to make it. Yes, I know Lewis is coming off losses, Rozenstruik coming off one win, but I mean, Derek Lewis ran right through Daukaus also. So it's not like Rozenstruik is beating like this next contender on the rise. He's beating a guy that was, sloppy thirds actually, because it was Lewis running over Daukaus, it was Blades running over Daukaus, and now it's Rozenstruik. And I think it's about time we see the matchup between Derek Lewis and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Battle of the heavy-handed motherfuckers. Count me in for that matchup. I want to see it. Let's keep running. Next one, Santiago Ponzinibbio. Listen, this fight was incredible. The comeback was awesome, but Morono was winning the first 2 rounds. Ponzinibbio's not a super young guy in the game. I don't think you rush him back up to ranked opponents, but I think you give him a guy who's previously been ranked and somebody who was recently ranked at lightweight, somebody who's coming off a dominant win over Brian Barberena. Let's give him RDA. I talked about RDA versus Ponzinibbio after last week, and I feel like this fight just makes perfect sense now. The timelines have worked out perfectly. They both are coming off wins, both savvy veterans. I want to see this fight. RDA, I think, has a bit of the grappling edge, power edge, gonna be Ponzinibbio. I think this is a huge matchup. Argentine dagger versus the Brazilian vet, the former champion. I like this matchup. I think the UFC should do Santiago Ponzinibbio and RDA next. I know it's not what RDA wants because he called out McGregor, but he's not getting that fight. And Ponzinibbio, unless maybe they rebooked the Lawler fight, I don't think he's getting pushed into top 15. I don't think he should be fighting these super quick up-and-coming guys. He fights a guy like RDA who still looks really good even in the later years of his career, I guess the twilight of his career. But it's a matchup that I'm curious to see. So yes, vote me in on Santiago Ponzinibbio versus RDA. That's the fight that I want for both these guys. I'm looking at it early, and I am thinking RDA could pull this one out. Especially the way Morono was touching him, and then RDA could mix the grappling in. But I like the fight either way. Ponzinibbio, always fun to watch, and I think RDA, always an enjoyable guy to watch too. Perfect matchup to make for both of them. Let's do Ponzinibbio versus Rafael dos Anjos. And let's talk about Raul Rosas Jr., the featured prelim winner, the 18-year-old kid. He destroys Jay Perrin, rear naked choke in 2 minutes. It was easy work. Mario Batista's a really good guy at 135, and he went 3 rounds with Jay Perrin, and he's known for his grappling. Rosas is a problem. And I think up next, though, we keep it with another light touch. It's Brandon Davis. Listen, the likes of Brandon Davis, the dude's been around. I know he's coming off losses, but this is a guy that still has fought some big names. At one point, he fought Magomed Sharapov. He's been in good scraps, more so a striker. Has some grappling, though, and the reason that I'm pushing towards the side of Brandon Davis as the fight for Raul Rosas Jr. is because we don't need a Russian 18-year-old kid up the ranks. Do I think he can compete with the likes of a Mario Batista? Probably, but why would we rush him there? Let's slowly build this kid. He doesn't need to be fighting top competition for another 3 years, and he'll only be 21. Let's do Brandon Davis. Give Raul more time to develop, and I think another submission win here against a guy who's proven tough and game. And not an easy guy to finish either, but I do think Rosas Jr. can get the sub on Brandon Davis. I like this matchup for him. I think we go Rosas Jr. versus Brandon Davis. Give him another older guy in the game with, I guess not really super old, but veteran savvy type guy in the game, but never really had a lot of success in the UFC, but still a lot of fights, a lot of losses, proven ways to beat him. And let's give Rosas these, I'm going to say, it's kind of like tomato cans, but they're still UFC caliber guys. They're still in the UFC. So it's not like he's fighting bums on the side of the road like you would building a guy up in the boxing game. Rosas Jr., Brandon Davis, count me in for that fight. Now, I added in a 10th place, another fight to talk about. Edmund Shabazian put on a great performance against Dolce Ligambula. It was a needed win after a 3-fight losing streak. He switched teams. He's looking a lot better. His physicality looks good too. He's got some solid muscle mass on him, and he looks just as powerful and quick as ever. In the wrestling defense, very solid. Granted, it's Dolce Ligambula. He's very back end as far as middleweights go. Who do I want to see Edmund Shabazian fight next? So I'm sitting here and I'm like, damn, what if we do the Battle of Armenian Savages? Let's throw down kickboxer versus kickboxer. Armen Petrosyan versus Edmund Shabazian. Yes, this is the fight I want to see. Both guys are incredible in the stand-up. I think they're going to be willing to engage in a kickboxing fight. It'll be so interesting to watch too because their styles are actually relatively similar. I don't know if these guys have any type of friendship with one another, but let's put it aside. It doesn't matter. They're both from the same spot. Let's settle it in the cage. The Battle of Armenia here. Armen Petrosyan, Edmund Shabazian. I promise it's fireworks. It's going to be a kickboxing battle, and I feel like the whole country of Armenia would probably go crazy seeing that these two are matched up. And I actually think that it's a fight that could be on the main card of a fight night. I think that could be a featured bout of the night. I don't know about co-main event, but featured bout of the night. And I'd be damn curious to see what happens. Armen Petrosyan, Edmund Shabazian, like I feel excited to see the fight. And we're talking about a Shabazian who just fought on the prelims. How good was UFC 282? Holy shit. Yeah, count me in for that one. Armen Petrosyan, Edmund Shabazian, Armenian kickboxing battle between two guys on the rise in the UFC. Shabazian has taken some more losses, but he was in the UFC younger. Petrosyan, pretty damn nasty. He's got some good skills, man. His kickboxing is dangerous. And his win over Gregory Rodriguez is aging like fine wine because Rodriguez is on his way towards the rankings. So let's go Shabazian, Petrosyan. Those are the matchups to make after UFC 282. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you agree with my matchups in the comments, especially for Paddy the Baddie. Let me know what you think could be next for him. I appreciate each and every one of you watching. Make sure you smash the hell out of the like button. If you're new, subscribe. I hope you guys have enjoyed this week's worth of content. Stay tuned for more because I'll be dropping content every day this week as well. Much love, my people. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace, guys.